100% of the initial account value, and I guess I can't see anything that would have been better for him to do.
Yeah.
There was that feature of the variable annuity that some people like.
Yeah, so when that happens, when there is a death benefit like that, in that case, it makes sense.
What did Susie forget?
Everybody died.
You thought I was kidding. No, I'm dead serious. This is the core issue within our business. When you're heavy-duty left-brain analytics, detached from the human side of the business, they begin to think that the clients serve the products versus the reverse. It's a real risk that sometimes people die. And what happens is when that's extracted and everything is dealt with facts and figures, she knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. If that woman listened to her, she would be out 70 grand and Susie say, buy my book. So tell me what Susie does in the morning when she's in the mirror looking at herself, trying to think about her life of significance, because she gives her advice. One thing I would tell you, she does give some good advice about getting people out of debt, but this is the core issue of what you're dealing with. We have a different type of business. Our business is different because it humanizes the capital markets. Let me tell you that again. It humanizes the capital markets. It pays people money when they need it most through risk pooling, which has got nothing to do with interest rates, stock market returns, or dividends. It's not a financial transaction, it's a human transaction. And the way we take care of it, we take risk away from people, or we modify risk by pooling it, and it's substantively different. And it just doesn't fall into the left brain analytical mind of someone who sits there in spreadsheets. This is the core of your problem. Because the other part of our research also blended into this video, because the other thing that we found out is that the stock market goes up and down. It's true. No, look, see? But people mistake that for risk. It's not risk, it's volatility. Volatility is the price you pay for extraordinary returns in the market. And this, if you want to see ground zero for people going nuts, you're looking at it. Panic selling on the way down, panic buying on the way up. It doesn't matter whether it's the professor or the janitor, they all operate the same way. This is the human condition, to operate in this fashion. And this is the major thing that has to be, because we have to be able to temper people's reaction to volatility. Because they're going to need equities. They're going to need equities, especially in light of the fact that people are living a lot longer. People have a fundamental misunderstanding of what money is. Money is not principle. Money is not principle. Money is purchasing power. It's purchasing power. And if you live 30 years in retirement, $100,000 has to go to $234 just to stay even. And that's why they need equities. But it's very difficult to do that when these people operate completely opposite of what they know happens to be right, and that's the idea of managing volatility. In fact, in 2000, people not only panic on the way down, it's also on the way up. January of 2000, one of our sales reps was visited. Imagine January 2000, what was going on there. The bubble hadn't burst yet. Client sat down and said, you know, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. You know, I think you're a nice person. But I've had it. I'm only up 33%. You know, you got me in this global stuff, which is dying because, catch this, the surging dollar. You got me in this large cap. It's going nowhere. The only thing that worked was this .com stuff. So I'm going to take all my chits, put it on red 19, let it rip. 18 months down, 80%. So if you have a client who comes to you with a proposition like that, you've got to learn the three most important words in financial services, and that's to say, don't do that. I'll repeat it for people taking notes, okay? Don't do that. Look, I'm not interested in what works today, I'm what's interested in works all the time. So I think that's something that's really important. The other thing we found out is that we see people are living longer. Have you noticed a lot of old people floating around? That's because they're living longer. So take a look at this. I mean, a male age 65 has a 50% chance of living beyond age 85. I know Tommy went through some of this with you. Ladies, you go to 88. A couple at 65 that doesn't smoke, there's a 50% chance won't be alive at age 92. Now this is life expectancy. What it means is half the people will be gone. It's not an average. And life insurance actuaries know to the person how many people are going to die. And so if you give them a big enough pool, they know exactly. They don't know who. They just know, you know, how many. new company out there. It's called Brooklyn Life. They know who's going to die. Anyway, you get my drift. So how are people dealing with this longevity? I love this. If we take a late retirement and an early death, we'll just squeak by. Okay? So that's the fun part. But then take a look at this. How to protect yourself from your parents. I took real offense at this because my mother was in a hospital bed in an apartment and having 2 kids. And of course I would take care of my mother. But you know what? As people age, what happens is sometimes they become physically or financially or both dependent upon their children. And that's a new phenomenon. It hasn't existed as much as it exists today. And of course I would take care of my mother. But some interesting things happen. All my siblings don't live in New York, you know, all the guilt and all the stuff going back and forth. But all of the discussion talked about this deals with the people providing the care, the baby boomers like me. Has anyone given any consideration to the impact on the person for whom the care is being provided? And I have a video that I think shows that. We'll play it, please.
I know what's going on here. I wish you'd just say it. You don't really want me to live with you. Your house really is too small. I'm sure the money's tight. Besides, I'm his mother, not yours. You probably think this isn't your responsibility. Yes, I can see it on your face. You wish someone else was stuck with me. That would be more convenient for you, wouldn't it?
My mother died in 1987, and I saw this in 1999. And when I saw this commercial for Catholic Charities, the first time in my life I saw it from my mother's perspective. I was completely clueless that perhaps my mother would have felt that her dignity would have been robbed because her legacy was one of dependency upon her children. Who the hell wants to wind up like that? Put that on a goddamn spreadsheet. You just can't. Don't you understand it? You can't do that. That's why our business is different. That's why you got to fortify yourself with stories like this. I don't want your mother to wind up in a circumstance like that. I don't want my wife to wind up in a situation like that. That's the stuff we deal with. It's so much more vital, so much more important. And we don't spend enough time on it. Because if you're really convinced of it and you know it, you can actually push people. Because people do business with you, not for what you do, but why you do it. And they'll sometimes test you. And if you really don't believe it, you'll cave in. And you're not going to make every sale. I'm not saying do that, but that's the impact. I know that if my mother had critical illness or long-term care, whoever sold it to her would be a saint in our household. And we would all know about it. And see, that's what you have the opportunity to be, is to be a hero to people. Because that's the impact you can have, a lasting impact, to show up and to be truly helpful to others. And that's your mission and your purpose. And that's what you should focus in on. So, having said that, on top of this, we're now moving from the idea of ROI used to mean return on investment. Now it's the reliability of the income. Because people have to take money out. And let me tell you something. The whole idea that the amount of assets you have dictates your wealth is a recent phenomenon. And I'll prove it to you. Does anyone know who this person is? This happens to be Jane Austen. Jane Austen wrote a lot of books in the early 1800s, early 19th century. They were kind of romanticized about English society, okay? And you might have heard of them, or you might have seen the book or what have you, but I'm just going to describe something to you. They were, in this book, Pride and Prejudice, all the women were chasing this hunk, Mr. Darcy. The way she described Mr. Darcy's wealth was not that he had £1 million, she said he got 10,000 a year. The historical perspective on wealth has always been on the reliability of the income and not the size of the asset. And we have that reversed. And we have to turn it back on top of that from an understanding point of view, from a connection point of view, from a behavioral point of view, from an emotional point of view. The only thing that people understand about money is income because they've lived on it all their life. They do not know how to monetize an income stream out of an asset. And that's part of your job. Because with the decline of defined benefit plans, what's happened is people wind up with a bag of cash. These are their new risks, new challenges. They got to turn assets into income. They don't know how to do that. They've got to manage risks, not just money. Everyone's talking about managing money. They now have to manage risks. They have to manage the fact that they might get sick. They have to manage, if they're taking the money out, that the stock market could go up and down. They have to manage through, and I know Tommy went through a lot of this stuff with the sequence of returns. They have to manage risk, not just money. And the last thing, and this is important, they have to make the most of what they got. Most don't have enough to sustain their lifestyle. But you can save them if you can get into the middle of them early enough so that they can understand what they could possibly do. And that's really what your role is. The average 401k balance from people between the ages of 60 and 65 is 3 years their income. Isn't that amazing? Because it almost ties to group insurance, right, Benny? People have 2 or 3 times their income that they're insured for. How long you expect how long you expect to be dead? The other part is how long you expect to live. These are the issues that we deal with. That's why you can't measure this stuff on strictly left-brain analytical financial tools. This is a human incidence. This is a human thing, measured on human lives. And that's our higher calling. And that's why you should feel good about yourself, because that's the benefits you can deliver. So one of the risks is turning assets into income. How would you do that? Let me give you a simple idea. At age 62, people can take Social Security, or they can wait till 67. At 62, they get an income of $18,000 a year. If they wait till 67, they get $28,000 a year. Just by waiting, you can get substantially more. Let me ask you something. Does $18,000 sound like a lot of money for retirement? This is the audience participation mode of the presentation. Does $18,000 sound like a lot of money? No. No, hell no. It doesn't sound like a lot of money. The question is, how much would you have to set aside on your own to give yourself $18,000 a year? Don't talk to me. Go to Fidelity. What they tell you is you got to multiply it by 25. You know what that is? $450,000. Someone has $600,000 in their 401k and they think they're a stud. It hardly funds the lousy retirement income. If they waited till 67, they'd wind up getting $28,000. If you multiply that by 25, it's $701. What's going on here? How can 450 go to 701 guaranteed in 5 years? It really can't outside of this. What's the one thing you learned from Tommy that allows this to happen? What's it called? Mortality credits. Social Security is the biggest immediate annuity in the world. There is no other investment vehicle that pays people more money because they're older. And there's a lot more people that are older. And the older they are, the more income they can get. A 70-year-old at low interest rates today can get close to 8% versus the 1% that they get at the bank. That's why you really have to explore these annuities. On top of that, 5 years from now, does anyone know what the stock market or interest rates will be, do you? But you know the person will be 5 years older. Or dead. But if they're 5 years older, you know, you can buy into this thing. That's why our business is made for these types of markets, as Tommy likes to say. The way to introduce people to immediate annuities is through the Social Security idea. Most people should try to bridge it and delay it because they get substantially more if they did that. Now, someone would say, all right, well, you know what? I gave up 18s, 5 18s. How long do I have to live to make that money up? Fair question. You got to live to 78. Guys, you got a 74% chance of doing it. Ladies, you got an 84% chance of doing it. You're playing that casino, right? Yeah, but what if I die at 76 and I don't get my money back? Who cares? You're dead. No, my point is, that's the way the left brain analytical mind works, is do I get all my money back? Who cares? You're dead. What if you live longer? And the idea of mortality credits, the longer you live, the more you reap. And there's no hidden science in it. All it is the number of people who put money in. They just aren't going to be around. And that's how it pays it out. The insurance company doesn't keep it. It spends it to the other people. It defers risk.